Discussion. So just a little bit of housekeeping, guys. Right now, this is live in Dean's Wall. So if any of you are, are watching us, go Dean's Wall and just click share. It's authorized now to be global restrictions. So make sure that you don't have it like just on your friends, right? It takes about a minute or so. And we are here at episode 206 for this awesome Pacific Standard Time afternoon, Vancouver, British Columbia noon time, with Annie Caligal. And we're looking forward to this because our goal is to have at least one or two female practitioners every month as our it's essentially as like our interview subject. And I have a lot of questions for her in like a systems analyst type of background. And I think we're geeking out because like you have a philosophy background. And did you know I got to meet Derrida before he passed away? I had one of his last classes in UCI.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
fantastic.
because my kind of you are more moral and ethics, and mine is more 20th century continental philosophy.
I like that too. I like
I
that
had
too. Yeah,
I had
existential continental. Yeah.
yeah
Yay.
I had Bern Magnus as like one of my I had one of his classes. I don't know if you know him.
No, I didn't read his stuff, but definitely Jacques Derrida. I read his stuff, and that's fantastic. Oh, I'm so jealous.
So do you see it now in Dean's Wall? It should have
I did.
generated.
I think I shared it onto my wall. So
Perfect, perfect,
yeah.
perfect. Cool, 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 cool. So now we can continue with our interview, and I just wanted to acknowledge people that are watching us. Royce Ramos from Nomad Kali in more New York area, PTK guy saying hola, hi to all. So hi to you,
Hi.
Royce. Um, and without further ado, I just wanted to get started to this fundamental question. Typically for guys, like the catalyzing influence for them to start martial arts is like when they play cowboys and Indians when they were a kid.
Hmm.
What was the triggering event for you that caused you to like diverge to the path of being a martial artist? What happened when you were a child that brought this about?
So just generally for martial arts, I got involved more for self-defense. My dad wanted me to make sure I had sort of extracurricular activity, and of course I did all your kind of team sports and stuff in school. And it didn't, I didn't really like it enough to kind of stay committed. And so, he was insistent I do something, and he liked the idea that martial arts could provide me with self-defense skills. As a dad, of course, they're very concerned about the safety of their daughters, and rightly so. So for me, it was just because I had to do some extracurricular activity for that physical activity, because dad was encouraging the exercise as he should. And my mom took me to a small karate dojo in the little small town that I grew up in. I grew up in southwestern Ontario in Canada. And they were just really welcoming. And I got to watch a whole class and really just, I think it was just everything. It was the respect before entering the dojo, that you bow, you don't wear outside clothes, you have a gi. The tradition. They were really focused on us learning the history and the culture of the art. And I was, tested on the history as part of my first testing. And I guess that opened up the doors to me of the scholarship aspect of martial arts that really excites me and gets me passionate. So that's what got me started on that journey. And then, as when you're younger, you're really keen on, getting the belts and getting the ranks and going up. And so, of course, my goal became get the black belt. And it took long enough that became my lifestyle. It became part of me. And so by the time I got the black belt, first, that was sort of the beginning, really, right? It's the sort of, holy crap, I don't really know very much, and this is just the start. So it wasn't quite that pinnacle that you think it is when you're younger. Um, and I just carried on, and then did other stuff, because funnily enough, almost the week after I got my black belt, which actually ended up being in Taekwondo, um, the dojo closed, and it like disappeared. Like it was fully on lockdown. There were chains on the door. And I turned to my mom and I'm like, was this a dream? Like, did I really get like, I did come here, right? Like for 3 years, I was training here. Like what happened? That was a strange mystery. And so it kind of explained why there was, at the time, my master Karen was kind of like, okay, I think you should test now. And I guess he knew maybe he wasn't able to sustain his dojo. So anyway, I had to find a new art. And then that started a whole series of many different journeys, starting with ninjutsu after a number of other arts before that. So I could go on, but I don't know if that answers your question. I think I went on a tangent.
Oh no, no, no. Now I'm gonna be more specific because I'm listening to everything that you're saying. How old were you exactly when you got your black belt? You must have been very young.
Yeah, I mean, I had just turned, I think, like 16. So I guess it was kind of a June. Like, I mean, I was just on the cusp of where some people might, I was just past the junior stage, I guess, or something. 16 and a half, I think, thereabouts, something like
That
that.
that's
Um, so I started in 1988, and I think that black belt was, yeah, 1997.
so you started Taekwondo in 1988, you're saying?
No, I started in Ishinryu Karate, and I did that for about 2.5 years, and I got to brown belt, so I was about 2 stripes away from a black. But we moved away from that small town to Toronto, and it just took a while to kind of find the same art. I mean, obviously there's other karates, and so at some point I just ended up shifting to Taekwondo because that ended up being a closer dojo. I think my mom found like an advert for like, if you signed up for the year, you got a significant discount. So she knew I was looking for something. So I ended up shifting completely to a Korean art. And then that took 3 years of very hard, dedicated, practice towards the black belt.
And so I gotta go specific for this because that's also one of my backgrounds. That's still kind of like a hardcore time before it became diluted. So you were seeing
I
dudes
guess.
generating like dudes doing spinning back kicks generating 2000 psi of force. You know,
Oh, I don't
replicating
know.
35, 45 mile per hour crash accidents when it comes to joules of force being generated. Um,
I think you're more geeky than I am, Julius, about that. I trust you, but I mean, I never got to do the, chopping of the board. Like I never did that in any of my dojos. So, I feel like I missed out entirely on that experience.
what forms did you practice? Was it Taiguk or Pomse?
Oh, I don't know. This is so long ago, Julius. My goodness, my brain is on FMA now. I
So
can't go
not
back.
no 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 it's okay. So 97.
I'm rewired, dude. I am
You're
rewired.
there. You're like completely flow now. It's not static anymore.
Dude,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes, that's where I'm at.
Because that would be 97 around the time like Princess Di passed away.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you learned FMA because you told us that in the pre-interview. That would have been around 2002.
From
That would have been
2000 to 2002. So in between, after my black belt, I ended up going to another club that was called the Samurai Club, and they actually had a mixed. It was a bit like an academy where there's multiple arts. So there was, Aikido, there was ninjutsu, there was some of the other arts and sports even. And so I took the ninjutsu class and did ninjutsu for about 5.5 years. And with that instructor separately, he was really keen on learning JKD and
mm,
learning Bruce Lee's art because he
mm,
was one of those I would consider more kind of standard sort of martial artists where they have the love of Bruce Lee that inspires them and whatnot.
mm,
I never really had that, to be fair. As you know, my reason for joining martial art was not that. So he brought me along. So I got semi-privates with him and Makoto Kabayama. So that kind of overlapped. Yeah, and then from about sort of, I guess, 2000, really, when I started. It took a while to like FMA because, you hit yourself in the head a few times and it's really weird, like the arms and the sticks. And But then of course, then it becomes your thing and you get flow and you love it and you can't even imagine what it was like being awkward about it.
It quite literally rewires your brain, your synapses,
Mhm.
neuron synapse connections. And so I was going to ask you, what's your angle one story? You must have had an angle one story.
Oh, I don't know if I had an angle one story. I had a heaven six clock your head several times story, like with my own backhand, you know? That's no
Tell.
fun. That's no fun.
Oh
Um,
my God. Tell us what happened.
oh, well, it just, when you're starting out and I mean, this was okay, but then it was how you hold your stick, the reverse, right? I mean, if you're going too close to your head, you clock your head. So it's sort of making sure that your wrist, oh gosh, where am I? That my wrist is not like that. It's more like that on the 45, right? So that you miss your head, right? And also like just the body movement and learning all of that, right? So of course I was like stiff as a board trying to do it with my arms and hitting myself on the back of the head too many times. And I mean, it almost made me kind of stop, right? Like, you're kind of like, I don't like this. But
Oh,
yeah.
concerning your ninjutsu background,
Mhm.
what particular sanction was it? Was it the Dr. Hatsumi background that you practice?
No, it was the Genbukan tradition, which I understand was a faction, and there was politics there. I didn't really fully understand it. I was at arm's length to
Did they
that.
did they teach you about the vagus nerve strike? Was that part of
Um,
your?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I practiced it, but I was aware of that and aware of kind of like the mystique that had been created around ninjutsu, but
Right.
what it really involved, because of course, I got some of that insight from the sensei, who was, at a fairly high level. I can't remember what rank he was at, but um, yeah. I mean, that was a really interesting learning for me around falling. um it really helped obviously drill in those break falls to make, which then now means that I could pick up Salat in a way that I think people struggle if they don't have any background in break falling. And then the wrist locks, or pressure point, control locks and things. I didn't fully get it then the way I get it now, in terms of really understanding lever and leverage. Um, but I'm good at my pressure points. I'm
That's
pretty,
good.
I'm pretty accurate and precise.
That's awesome.
So I'm told by my ukes when I hit them over and over again in the same spot.
A common one response that I got the last few days, because I did send a flyer out for you, is like they noticed that not only female practitioners but particularly like female teachers or masters, they tend to be a lot more technical than
Hmm.
the guys too. Because not that's a generalization. I'm not saying all, right, but they're saying like because maybe like taking the ego out of it, or maybe because like normally you don't have the same like muscle to skeletal ratio. So like they're forced to like rely 100% technique. It's kind of like similar to Marcelo Garcia and BJJ. That guy is probably like 5'4", 5'5", maybe
Yeah.
like 140 pounds soaking wet, but he's
Hmm.
able to take out like high level
Yeah.
world champion practitioners that are like 6'2", 6'3",
Yeah.
because his technique is just note perfect.
That's right. It has to be. It has to be. So, that is a fundamental difference, right, in our biology. And so, and that, I think that's what appeals to me about FMA, is that it's all badang physica, right? It's all physics. And if you just, when you feel it and it feels right, it works, and there is no strength involved, right?
Yeah.
When you're muscling it, you're not doing it right. So if
And
I have to, if I'm like, okay, then I'm wrong. My angle is wrong. My timing is wrong. My position is wrong. It, yeah, I think that's the beauty for me, is that that's possible. And that's what I think, what I mean by, I now understand kind of what obviously exists in other arts like ninjutsu, and the lever that was there with all of their wrist locks and stuff. I'd muscle it a lot, and I had it muscled on me, and kind of, it does, martial arts does attract a certain kind where people do like to hurt other people. And there's sort of a context where that people can exhibit that, express that, and that's ego. And I've had that done to me, and it's not pleasant, especially when that person doesn't like to have it returned to them. But yeah, that's the beauty, I think, and the excitement for me is that it works. I mean, of course, someone can physically just lift me up and throw me about if they're twice my size, 250 pounds, and twice as tall. But yeah, that's not technique, and ideally I don't get close enough for someone to be able to do that, or have a way to deal with it if I end up on the ground, which of course would involve weapons, right? I have to find an equalizer. And so yeah, so that I think that's exactly it. I think that we're forced to, as female practitioners, to hone the technique. And so I think that allows us to really understand in our bodies that the truth in that, the truth in the art, because we can't rely on strength to make something work.
Unfortunately, you touched up on very two interesting topics, just like what you noted right now. It's like you have a tool, you have a lever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you kind of intuitively learn the biomechanics of that you could apply without having that tool,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a tool is a force multiplier. So like
Mm-hmm.
joules of force gets multiplied over that because you're essentially extending your frame, and your apex is much bigger, right? So you can generate more joules of force. And
Yeah.
one other thing that you touched up that I think most people don't talk about in the FMA community is, unfortunately, there is a small segment of our community, and every martial arts community, that had a lot of unprocessed trauma, which creates like unnecessary type of ego, which is very toxic and harmful for a
Yeah.
lot of practitioners, and that needs to be addressed, because we need to really clean house and kind of get rid of those people, or address that, or at least how to deal with them, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one. That's a real tough one, because I think it's a higher prevalence in our community as martial artists, in part because uh, by design there's violence in what we do, right? And so that attracts different kinds of people. I'm not attracted to that. I think that's why I really appreciate Guru Inosano, and his message is all about safety and health and well-being. And I appreciate that his teaching and training has changed over the years, probably in large part because of his aging, and realizing like he still wants to be able to do his art, for all his days. And it's harder to do that at 75 or 85 if you spend 20, 30, 40 years in your earlier youth as a martial artist really testing yourself and your skills, and putting your body through physical brutality to be able to know that you can do what you can do, and that has consequences, right? But we all do, what's called like, discounting, right? In kind of economics context, right? We all have short-term discounting. We would rather have the excitement or the adrenaline or the ego boost from succeeding and in testing our skills and whatnot, to the how is this going to cause neurological disorders when I'm 85 or 75, and make it so I'm unable to do my art. But I think if that becomes the motivation and the message, over time, I think we will dilute out, perhaps, or it won't attract as many folk who really either are sadist or masochists or both, because of their own stuff, because of their own stuff. And seeing that as a kind of way to express that. People express it in other ways. Um, and martial arts is one, and I think it's highly prevalent just by the nature of what it is. Yeah.
This is such a refreshing interview, because now you're talking about opportunity costs, that people don't take into account when we're practicing martial. And you know what? I always tell this. I'm always a defender of Guru Dan. I was like, because he gets some undue hate by a very small segment of the FMA community. And I
Yeah.
will say, like, y'all can't hate on him because he's walking the talk. He's that prime example of a dude that does essentially is doing longevity training,
Yeah.
where he's 85 and like, have you seen an 85 dude move like that? Like a guy
No.
in his
No.
and looks that way and looks that way too,
Yeah,
right?
and can still do like 400 or 500 push-ups, dude. Like, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
What
you
what's so
know,
insane? What's so insane is I've touched hands with a Sealot guy here that I really look up to, and
yeah.
he's a Hollywood writer. I get my ass kicked by him, and like I've
Mhm.
been practicing martial arts since I was about like 8 years old, and he says he can't touch Guru Dan when he's doing those Sealot drills when they touch hands.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Like, like the
Yeah.
level of dexterity and skill of with a lifetime worth of technique,
Oh my
right?
goodness. Oh my goodness, totally. There's something I wanted to also speak to, Julius, from a female perspective on what we were just talking about.
Please.
And that is that, as a female, I'm a lot more vulnerable to unwanted touch. And it's in the context of, our art is very physical. And in FMA, it's always very partnered. At least my experience, often, the training is it's really it's call and response. You're training with a partner. There's, relative to the other arts I've studied, it's not really a solo practice per se, and it's really a shared thing, and so that creates a kind of added vulnerability, and um and it's hard as a female sometimes to call that out, because it could just be that someone slipped up in their technique. um and you're in a room full of highly accomplished fighters. So that's something I wanted to speak to, because it's something that I'm sure every female that you're going to interview has at least encountered once.
Can I get a general public service announcement right now to the community for all the hundreds or thousands of people that are gonna watch this interview in the future? Quit copping the field, bros. Okay, not just Annie Caligal, but like girls in like FMA in general. So wow, like I'm glad you brought that up because
Mm-hmm.
no one hardly ever talks about that, particularly if you get to that quarter range.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah, and especially in Salah with off
Oh
balancing and pushing
yeah,
people's bodies,
right.
and you might miss the shoulder and go a little bit lower, and it's not really quite appropriate. So yeah,
Particularly when you get to the initiation of the Putter Kapali. Yeah, yeah, totally,
yeah, yeah.
totally.
And I mean, it's gonna happen that you brush body parts by accident and what have you, but as a training partner, you're giving your body to that other person with a certain level of trust and an expectation of respect. And unfortunately, we still live in a very patriarchal society where some men feel like, they're it's okay for their hands to be in places that aren't wanted.
Man,
Yeah,
please archive this episode, guys. This is
it's
because you
it's
might
the
be the first
reality,
person.
man. It's the
I'm I'm
reality.
I'm just being real. You might be the first. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. FMA discussion episode nerds. That might be the first time that's really been addressed in detail in FMA discussion. So this is
Yeah.
kind of historic.
Well, it's kind of an important piece of my heart. It's something that I'm trying to do locally, is be engaged in women's self-defense and women's self-protection and empowerment, and safety is part of women's empowerment, but it takes men to be part of that dialogue.
Yeah, it's not just one sided. It is
Yeah.
like a lichen relationship to a rock. It's dual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's again, like, I guess I praise Guru so much. I just really honor his emphasis on the women warriors of the Philippines and his admiration for women martial artists that he's trained under, and even that he's taught. He's got some amazing, like, I've often been the only female in any gym or dojo I've been to. Like, I'm sure you can imagine what that might be like in for your own social identity, not as a man, but in other contexts. You might be the only person from your social group. That's an interesting feeling relative to when you go to another environment and you see 3 or 4 of you and there's a collective and you're like, wow, okay, that's brilliant. And I only really saw that at least in the FMA, and certainly when most of my circles are related to the Inosano family. So that's just, to me, that's so telling, like that again is him walking the talk, I think.
Well, I mean, he has Paula and his daughters, so
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
yeah,
again, he's walking the talk. You know.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So I was gotta ask about this. Please fill us in and like continue with your story and tell us about the UCLA days. Tell us about that 2000 2002 period. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
so my first trip to UCLA was actually just very short. It was about 4 months, and I did 40 hours every month for 4 months at the Inosano Academy. I'd gone over to do an internship at UCLA between my undergrad and then kind of what I wanted to do later, but that wasn't turning out to be what I thought it would in terms of research and the kind of supervision I was looking for. So I thought, well, heck, I'm in this mecca. This is the teacher of my teacher, or actually my teacher's teacher. And so I just took advantage of going to like almost every single class. I think probably the only class I didn't do in that summer of 2002 was probably the Shuto classes. But Guru Mark Denny had a class. He had a Dog Brothers class, I think, on Saturday. I think I did about 5 hours on Saturday and about 3 or 4 hours every night during the week. And I can't remember if Guru was teaching. I think he was teaching Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and maybe even Monday back then. And then, of course, he was away for the weekend, which I didn't really fully appreciate at the time. how, how many world seminars he was doing on the weekends, because, of course, I was just at the academy. But that was amazing. That was amazing. And Simo Tanya Paulson was my training partner at the time. Gorgeous coming in with her lacquered nails and her hairs right after she'd done like a photo shoot. And we were boxing. She had pink boxing gloves. It was just hilarious. And I remember Simo, Amy Tucci was there that summer. She'd come, I think, every summer from Princeton. So I had a few brief encounters with her, and sadly, she passed away quite a few years ago from cancer. But just some inspiring, women FMA who clearly had been in it for a long time, and it just, I felt like it just transformed my training and what it meant to be a martial artist and what I thought about that and what it meant to me. It just was a step change, completely. And yeah. And then I went away for school and graduate stuff and traveling, and it took a long time to get back on the Inosano bandwagon. But I managed to find someone in the UK when I was eventually in the UK. And so this is now like 2009. So 7 years. I had a 6-year hiatus. So I have trained for actively for 28 years, but I've been in the martial arts for 35, right? Because I've got that hiatus. So, I wasn't really active, but it was in me and I was thinking about it, but I didn't always have to, I think there's a distinction that people should make. Because often they just sort of say how long they've been in it or when they first started, which doesn't account for downtime. But I got back into it in 2009, and I've kind of gone strong since then, and just gone to all seminars ever that I could possibly attend.
We have to rewind because like a guy like just like was like exclamation point on my personal message. How many hours a week did you put on again in the academy? That's so
Well,
insane.
I had a little key, like a little punch card, and it was
Like,
up to like 15. I think I always did 40 hours every month. I actually still have those cards. They were little like the receptionist would have to like little do a little like initial, because of course it wasn't digital back then. It's not even digital now. But yeah, no, it was like 5 hours on a Saturday and like 3 or 4 hours every night. And bless all the academy folks. I always got a ride either from Tanya, mostly from Tanya, or from a few others. Occasionally I had to take the bus home because I was staying in Westwood at the time. So I think I would take this, either it was the Santa Monica #1 or the Santa Monica #3 or something. I mean, that was a long bus ride, dude. Like that was like an hour. So
an
I had
hour,
to
yeah.
make sure I left the lab at like 3 or 3:30 to get on the bus to get to the academy on time. And dinner would usually be after.
See that's what happens to all the high level practitioners. You were addicted.
I was
It was
addicted.
yeah. It's not obsession. It's addiction. You know.
It kind of is. It kind of is. Well, I mean, it was just
That's
like you
good.
say,
That's
it was
good. That's
it was
good.
a smorgasbord that I didn't even know this kind of thing existed. And I was like, I am here for a short period of time. This might be the only time in my life that I'm ever gonna be here. I will take advantage. And like I say, it skyrocketed my training. Obviously the hours, but the hours at an incredibly high with high level people,
Yeah.
that really helps.
So going back to that in the scientific sense of patterning, right? Patterning your behavior too. Um, it is quite unbelievable because you have a place like that that is almost like come out of like a comic book, like Shambhala or something from like Tibet or something like that. And at that time period, essentially you were living almost like a monastic fighter's existence, except it was as a martial artist, like you're absorbing this corpus of knowledge of different fighting systems throughout the planet, right? So this is a key question that I'm going to ask you. During that time, this must have happened. Um, what is your interface or experience with the numinous and liminal concerning FMA? Because I'm guessing you were doing it so much, you must have been dreaming about it and other things. Any kind of heightened awareness, you know.
Yeah.
I know you're a STEM person. I know it's kind of taboo in our community. And just so I don't want you to lose your job or anything, or get
No,
excommunicado. You
that's
know.
fair. I might have been. I'm not sure. I sleep pretty deep, Julius. So I think I just was so freaking exhausted from all the training that I probably just slept, honest. But I loved it, right? It actually, I mean, I was physically exhausted, and so probably just slept like a log. So I don't know if I was dreaming back then about it, but I will share a story that some people may find strange. But my former partner was not a martial artist, and always kind of described himself as a pacifist. But he had the opportunity to drum at the academy. Some of the academy folk know who he is. And so he had a chance to observe, and of course, he had a chance to be around me. And I think almost every day he would say that there was, my higher self was always going over the material. And so he's like, oh, so today is Wing Chun. And so he'd get really, like our interactions would in some ways reflect what's happening in my higher self. So I am always practicing, apparently. I'm not aware of that. I can't tell you that I have any evidence of this other than his experience of me, and watching and seeing my development. And so I did get to go back to LA, right? So after my PhD at Cambridge, you do what's called a postdoctorate. So, the universe, spirit brought me back to UCLA through connections. I got a position. And of course, that was amazing. So I was like, oh my God, I get to go back to LA. And my bucket list was to be a student at the academy. Having been a guest for 4 months and just seeing it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'd love to go back and have a chance to just, be there for more time, not under this kind of short-term pressure. And I'm just so grateful that I had that opportunity to do that. And that again, I think helped bring me to another stage in my training. And I feel a lot more confident in being able to teach now, and see that I'm not too shabby.
No. That's incredible. That's incredible. So it's like you're probably having like arguments, say we are pak sawing, lap sawing, but in like verbal communication. I can like imagine it right now. So it's like depending on like what martial art you were practicing, this is hilarious.
Yeah, or just maybe what I guess I was feeling I wasn't practicing, so that in the back of my mind I'm trying to think through, or I don't know. I honestly don't know. It varied. Some days it was Kali, some days it was Silat, some days and then of course he would ask me questions, right? So he started to be like, hey, I remember this thing that you did this, and how did that work again? And so then I'd be like, oh yeah, it's just like this. And so being able to kind of almost see the pieces that somebody else is seeing, and then actually know what they're referring to, and be like, oh, right, okay, and then this is how you get there. I'd have always hoped, I guess, I'd be at that place as an martial artist, and I suppose now I am.
Um, your contemporaries in the lab, what did they say? Did they know about this? That you're basically this like female ninja, like female ninja in training, like you know what I mean? Did they know like that you were like a martial arts geek? You know what I mean?
Do you mean like my colleagues at the faculty?
Yeah.
And
I'm talking about it during your time in UCLA and then later in Cambridge. Just like, wow, like let's not mess
ah,
with Annie. You know what I mean?
no, I mean some people, yeah. I mean I shared it with some people. I don't know if everyone fully really knew what that meant. But my passion comes across, and I think it always has. And so I think people have always found that fascinating. I think guys in particular find that quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's quite a challenge in some respects, and appealing. And
You must have been popular with the dudes. So this has got to be the thing. You got to ask out all the time, most likely.
well, yeah, or they would kind of be like, oh damn, I should be scared around you, or that you must really be angry, or yeah, sometimes be intimidated.
That's funny. And then you must have gone to the lab and you'd be like, "Hey, Annie, why are you so tired today?" I don't know. I was doing Heaven 6 for like 4 hours.
Yeah, I think probably it was more the very strange bruises in various places that I couldn't always explain. Be like, oh yeah, I guess I was sparring last night, or and when I was younger, I even as a female, that there was an aspect of feeling like they're kind of war scars, in a sense that they were representing my physical toughness at the time. In some ways, my willingness to kind of really push my body to the limits, and sort of take a beating literally, and to some degree, and I think we're more willing to do that when we're in our 20s, maybe even in our 30s. But I just turned 41, so I am more interested in longevity at this point. And I've had enough injuries now that have significantly compromised my training. So I'm in a different place with that.
So this is next question is going to tie into that now. And so it's kind of a multi-pronged one, not just one question. Um, a lot of the people like high performers like you in academia during the last decade and a half, they've been really into pushing the mindfulness training, even the microdosing, movement. Um, have you incorporated any of these facets and methodologies and modalities into FMA?
Well, it's a really good question. Um, I don't think consciously, no. But I feel that in many ways those elements are inherent in the training method that we've been taught, or at least the one that I've been taught. I feel like in many ways, um, true free flow in Kali and FMA is a state of mindfulness. That is mindfulness. That's what you're trying, at least this is what someone, kind of when I shared what I do, and someone else recognized that, is like, wow, you practice mindfulness and meditation all the time when you must do your martial arts, because um, you have to be fully present in a way, um, to be in flow and to really have that beautiful interaction. I'm thinking of Sambrata, obviously, as sort of the pinnacle uh, of where you want to be at, right? Just true flow, creative call and response with someone, right? It's that energy interaction. So um, yeah, not consciously, I don't think. But I mean, I suppose because of my injuries, I've had to take a different approach to how I train, or what I focus on. And obviously with COVID, we've had to sort of shift gears and do a lot more, um, kind of solo training effectively. Even if we're doing it online in this way, we don't have that feedback from that partner.
Right.
So we have to be aware of our bodies in a different way, and it has its pros and cons.
So since you're a teacher now, so this ties into, this is not an official question for you. It was actually a question for Jonathan. I didn't have the opportunity to do him though, but it ties into what you were just talking about.
Okay.
How have you felt that the nature of FMA changed during this last year in the time of the pandemic? What are the challenges that this have brought about? And even like, what is this doing essentially to the art? Because you're right. In my experience too, FMA is more of a partner. It's hard to do it alone, shall we
Mm,
say,
mm,
right?
mm,
Um, and when you're training with Zoom, yes, you can have like 30 people, right?
mm.
It's like, wow, earn more money remotely, right? Work anywhere in the world, right? But it's still you though. There's no like person there involving you. Like, how have you seen like it changed? Like, what are the positive attributes of it, and what are the negative?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you kind of touched on some of it in a sense, and I'll just, I guess, sort of rephrase. I mean, for me, the positive personally has been being able to reconnect with one of my FMA communities, so the MKG family, um, in part because of my academic life and my professional life. Um, I've been limited in where I can then invest my free time. And I've done that predominantly following Guru and going to his seminars, even including in Australia. And so it meant I kind of lost a lot of my connections in the UK with the MKG family. And so the amazing positive piece of COVID is that inspired and created an international class that's online. So I get to still have that connection, and I still get to be inspired by Rick Fay and his learnings and teachings. And it's cognitive and intellectual, obviously, because I can't, there's no interaction, physical interaction. But it has, for each of us who've attended regularly, there still is benefit in training on your own and still having the camera and sort of seeing a partner, and they kind of feed you, and you can see your body and you can see other people's bodies. You still get a learning from that. You still get a neurological feedback, right? Just from the watching. And I suppose depending on where people are at in their own training journey, if you're at a high enough level, you know your body enough to know in some ways you can visualize that partner, and you can tell when you've done a technique not quite right. You're like, oh, that doesn't feel right from how I remember it to feel when I had that partner, right?
Right.
So so that's a really high level training I think it's forced us to do in a positive way, that we never are forced to do that because we have a partner. We can just go to a partner and get that feedback.
I'm gonna play a devil's advocate with what you just said though. But here's the thing:
Okay,
don't you don't you have to have that base though to know that you're doing it wrong,
right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
so I think
Absolutely. So Julius, the bad thing, right, is we've lost that interaction. temporarily, because that's important. That experiential knowledge is, like you say, it's that neurological memory that you can then tap into when you don't have that partner.
Right. So I think this is my personal stance, right? This is my personal stance.
Yeah.
For higher level practitioners such as yourself, I think this really is like almost like a golden era in Filipino martial arts, because literally like you could train with masters that previously unhitherto unknown. Those like the higher practitioners that people had no access for, but because they have remote learning, like they can train with them at any given Saturday or Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And because you do have that prior background, you'll realize it's like, oh crap, I did that wrong. Like, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like,
Mm.
but I think it's detrimental for people that are just starting off. The thing is, it's not detrimental because there's actually they can learn new material every week. The
Yeah.
problem is like without someone there to actually correct them by feel, by tactile response, it's hard for them to do it like 100% right.
Yeah.
Like to get it to be like that's the right technique or that's the right application of the
True.
concept.
True. True. There is that. I think that's inherent to the nature of FMA, which, like I said, is actually what attracted me eventually to FMA. Is that all the other martial arts I had were very solo, which is what was initially what I liked. I liked that independence of being able to practice on my own. I could do kata, and do the conditioning. But at some point for me, it became really inspiring to have that method, the FMA method of training with a partner. And you do need that, and you need to train with multiple partners, right? It's not good to just have that one person that you then become comfortable with and is like, their angle one all the time. And then you go to someone else, you're like, woo, that's a different angle one. Woo, my defense doesn't work as well to that angle one. So many bodies is good. Many bodies is good. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, like, I think it would just slow down someone's journey if they're starting out in this context. It would just, I think, slow that journey, but I would hope that eventually we'll go back to a kind of more interactive. But I think we're on the same page, Julius. I think the benefits are the pros, or the pros are the cons, and the cons are the pros, right?
Yeah, we're close to the same age too, so it's like I
Bit
think
old
like
school.
yeah, yeah, it's weird because we're like interface generation, like where we remember that a time where there was no internet,
Yeah.
and then like
Yeah.
it's just a
Punch
weird
cards.
yeah, it's like a weird junction point of like X and millennial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah. So
mean, but so speaking to that, I mean, what about all this like AI three-dimensional video games and the feedback that you get? I mean, maybe that's the wave of the future for FMA, is that through a computer you get that physical thing. That is the only way I would imagine you could simulate having an instructor and getting those different angles ones and stuff. But I mean, I don't know. Is anyone designing an FMA computer game?
hey, if anyone's watching this interview that has the capability, please do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I used to work for AT&T, and I installed like this guy is so high tech. He had a blade server farm in his house, and so he had a one of those the sensors. It's kind of like a stall that you sit in,
Okay.
kind of like Dance Revolution, right?
Okay. Okay.
And then you put sensors in your body, and so it read your response.
Yeah.
The lag was very minuscule. So I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, man, this would be like a perfect for like an FMA game, like maybe like a sword game, right? And
Yeah.
then you can have the biofeedback for the shock, like, oh, I got hit in the hand, right?
Right. Right.
Like kind of like the dual shock controls in PlayStation, but like an actual like harness that you're wearing.
Exactly. That could work. That could work. And actually, I just met someone who bought a video game that is, it's lightsabers but to a beat, and so you have to strike on that beat and you get different beats. And so I think it's called like saber beat or some I don't know, something like that with the combination in it that sounded like it was kind of, I was like, oh, so did you get that to be able to do your collie? And he's like, yeah, totally. I did it so I could like improve my collie to, the rhythm, right? The
I,
rhythm and then learning to strike on or off the rhythm and having that, I don't know. Yeah.
My sister actually works for Nintendo in a technical position. And I always
Hey.
asked her like, yeah, hey, she's a comp sci, from Cal Poly, graduate. I always ask her, it's like, what happened to the 3D motion sensor technology? Because PlayStation had one, and then Xbox had the Kinect, a system. And she says like, honestly, the reason why it never like took off is there weren't enough people buying it.
Mm.
Because their theory is like for that generation of gamer, they just wanted the keypad, right? And she's saying like, I don't think its time has come yet. It's not that the technology is not there. It is.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
just that for the most part, like that generation of gamer was basically sedentary.
Yeah.
And so, but these upcoming kids,
Hmm.
they're more into like
Active, right?
yeah,
Active.
yeah.
So hey, maybe we've got a future market base for that. It's
I
the marketing.
I need to brush up on my coding.
There you go.
If
Liz,
that,
there's your new project, man. You're
if,
welcome. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, like get into Unreal 3D game and then figure out like the motion sensor technology for that.
Because I think,
Yeah.
I mean, there is a big FMA community, globally. There is a market. It's just
And
marrying
think
them,
and think about that. Technically, like with that thing, they can have live tourneys from like across the world,
right?
and it'll be like an Evo moment 37. Sorry, I'm geeking.
I guess so. I guess so. That's that's not my
So-
domain.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Because I'm just trying to envision that in my head. Like they would be like Super Smash Brothers, but like they're the character themselves, though. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And have people around the world playing each other. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure the technology is there. It just, I guess it's the packaging and it's the coding more for I guess the martial arts context of that technology, and then marketing it to all of our future FMA babies.
So I was gonna ask you, like, how did you feel? So we're gonna fast forward a little bit in the future. You had that was like the UCLA years, right? The Los Angeles years. How did you compare the FMA community in the UK? I used to go to the UK several times a year, so I'm curious. Tell me about I'm curious about your input. How was that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, do you have some criteria you'd like me to make up for comparisons? Or is it just a general, like the vibe or the people or what?
Yeah,
Like,
the people. I definitely am not partial to their food. I like American food more,
oh,
but I like their people. It's really awesome because I have family in London, Sheffield, and Liverpool. So
well, I mean, I was impressed actually at how many people were in the FMA community once I got to know them. For such a small little island, and there's a lot of folk under Guru Rik Faye and stuff. So, and now a lot of them have branches and schools and things. It's ironic though that it's actually quite hard to visit people and do a lot of travel because the roads in England are not.
yeah,
They're not conducive to transport in certain
no,
locations. Like an east west is like, it takes you 6 hours when you're just like, wait, what? Just straight road.
yeah. Well,
Anyway,
that's why you just take the really fast trains. You know?
well, yeah, if there is a train that goes east west, but
Yeah.
and I was there, without a car, and so ironically my access was fairly limited, although I knew there were so many amazing people, right? I mean, there's Bob Breen in London that I got to meet. I went to one of his seminars once through my good friend Sid, and then you know oh my gosh, why am I having a brain fart? The creator of Ghost. Why do I not know his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he's down in Bournemouth. Um, Also awesome, right? But it takes about 4.5 hours to drive down to Bournemouth and whatnot. So, I mean, it was awesome. I love that community. I miss the community. Um, that's why I love being on this online platform, is seeing all those folks, seeing all my old friends from the UK. And a lot of us would go, to gurus seminars in Spain or Italy or Germany. And there's a real, like, the international instructors essentially under guru. Like, it's a really nice community and family, I think, and I certainly felt very welcomed, and yeah, I miss them. But it's vast. It's amazing how many people there are in it, and once you learn, but it's all word of mouth. That's the thing. So hence my hiatus for so many years was, ironically, I was in Edinburgh studying, and guess who has a school in Edinburgh? Like, Rick Young, for goodness sakes. The Rick Young Black Belt Academy was like just down the freaking road. And I had no idea.
So
Because
you train with Phil Norman over there?
Phil Norman, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Phil, thank you for that name.
Yeah.
Phil, I'm sorry, I forgot you. I'm having a brain
Did,
fart.
did, did you train with Abanico Transpunta's guy too, Baldison?
No, but it sounds familiar. But no, I did train with Phil a little bit, like at MKG seminars, and then he came down, actually gave a demonstration of Ghost at the Academy, and I was still at the Academy. So, amazing. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
You must have taken the East Midlands train a lot.
Yeah, to be fair, I took the plane a lot. Actually, I did most of my training for the last couple of years at like Guru's international seminars, and I'd fly to LA. So it's kind of funny.
I can't wait to meet you. Honestly, you seem so
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
this
Yeah,
is
we
great.
go we could go eat out at Westwood somewhere or something, or maybe like Echo Park
Yeah,
or Silver Lake or something like that.
for sure, Julius.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah. Oh my gosh, are we almost at time? This is like, it's gone by the hour.
No, we're not. It's
We're
dependent on
not?
you.
Okay, good. I wasn't
It
sure.
it's
Are there
dependent
more
on you.
questions?
Yeah, no, so I was gonna ask, it's dependent on you because typically what ends up happening is when we exceed the marker of an hour 15 or an hour and 30, so about 70 to 90 minutes, we tell the interviewee, do you still want to continue or do you want to do like a part two for this? And the other thing is sometimes it's also dependent on us because like we have family, right?
I
So
know,
like
yeah.
but thankfully
I
for you,
have
like
time,
I
Julius.
don't I don't I don't have anything to do this Saturday outside of like working for Lyft later on because I earn extra few dollars. I love like talking to people. I have an
Nice.
actual 9 to 5 job, but
Yeah.
believe it or not, I actually drive as a cab person because
Okay.
it's like I really enjoy interacting with like humans. Like I don't videotape them. That seems wrong, because you have to sign a release form later on.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, it's just kind of like one of my weird hobbies that I do.
Neat. Yeah. Well, bartending would do that too.
I used to be a barkeep, but that was years ago. I didn't have a good experience with that.
Oh,
Because
well, when you mix alcohol in the context,
no, it wasn't that. The
oh,
reason why is because it involved FMA.
oh,
What ended up happening is I closed the bar at 3 a.m. and unfortunately there was a person that tried to assail me and I had to use my FMA, unfortunately.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that. We don't really want to use our stuff that we know, which is interesting when people, I often get the question like, have you ever had to use your skills? That's a
I
tough question,
I hope not. That's
right?
always my answer. You know what I mean? Because you have
I
to
hope
think
not.
about
I hope,
litigation and
yeah, yeah. But then I think actually, I'm sure I have in many ways. And it's actually hard to, how do you prove what didn't happen? Because your number one skill is prevention. So if I prevented a lot of scenarios because I walked away, I removed myself because I felt something was going to happen, or I felt the energy of an environment potentially put my safety at risk. So I left. Did I use my skills? I think so. I think
I'm
so.
so glad that you addressed that. I mean, to me, that's like the hallmark of I'm sorry, like I'm so happy. People, can you like give her like a hand of applause, um like a virtual one? People don't talk about threat avoidance as like part of a key skill in Filipino martial arts. Not just situational awareness, but like threat avoidance is another component of that, because you have to be situationally aware and then to realize that that's a threat and you avoid that threat. And if I can go back to what happened all those years ago, and that 3 a.m. I was assailed, it really was my fault because I could have taken another route. I saw him like 100 meters away. Like
Right.
in many ways, what happened to that person is my fault that they
Mm.
got hurt, because like,
Mm.
you get what I'm
Because
saying?
you had an escape route. You could have gone a different way, and yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, don't beat yourself up, Julius. I'm not trying to blame you for that, or but I guess it's also about what is the litmus test, right? And I think that goes back to the different experiences that female martial artists may have from male, in terms of what are my threats versus what are your threats. And my threats are usually more in an intimate scenario. They're more maybe where like it's maybe a crowding and I'm, like say in a club scenario or whatever. So if I can make sure I'm not cornered or not forced into a bathroom against my will or not those things, then I've used my skill. And I use my skill because that is women's reality every day, right? Many women's reality. So if I can make sure I go through life where I don't have that on a frequent basis, I think that's a win in a sense, right? And sometimes it's knowing not to go to a place, and it's like, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to stay in tonight, because I know that is in a location that if I leave at late at night, um, there's not many people around. It's not well lit. Even if I know my ride, it could be all those things, right?
I was gonna give a tip to some people. Most people are aware that are watching our show, because most of the people that watch our show are like martial arts geeks. But I have like gotten out of so many dicey situations with a tactical flashlight.
Nice.
Like literally just like shine them, and they're
Right.
so thrown off by it. They're like,
Yep.
like like, you know what I mean? Like almost like their blood pressure dropped or something, right? Or
Yep.
like I throw them like a what's it called, a card.
Mm.
The playing cards.
Right. Okay.
I just throw it
Okay.
at their face, and then I just run.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
Because they're so thrown off. But I'm like, here's the thing. But if you have the threat avoidance, you won't even need to do that.
Yeah.
You don't even need
Exactly.
you don't even need
Exactly.
to do that. So
Or just having the self-awareness to position your body in a way that doesn't make you an opportunity for someone else, right? And I'm thinking about, say, for example, when you're going to the ATM machine, something that was taught to me in a women's self-defense seminar that actually Makoto Kabayama put together. One of it is, rather than I look straight at my, at the screen and I'm typing my little thing and I've got my back completely to the outside world, is just sort of turning and I'm going sideways, and then that means with my peripheral I have probably not a full like 360, but maybe a 240 range, and like cover and just doing it. So I don't always do it, but if I'm in a strange place and I don't know, I will take on, I'll position my body in a way that I know is a signal to somebody else that I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention. And I can't be easily startled or jumped or taken from behind in that kind of way. And I'm loving some of these new technologies with our cars. So I have a car now that I just, all I need is the key in my pocket. I go to the door and it opens it for me. I don't have to fumble about. I don't have to insert a key anymore. And I'm like, this is great women's self-defense technology. I can just pop into my car and my car door opens and I don't have to fumble with anything in a pocket or a purse. Mind you, obviously holding keys is an interesting thing. I do that if I'm walking down the street by myself. Keys are a good making noise and making it aware that like I've got a weapon in my hand. So there's that counter piece. But do you see what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean? Like back in the day, you had to insert the key. So as women, you were taught to like turn your, and just keep looking as you're doing that. I mean, it slows you down, but again, maybe you get used to doing it blind. All those little things. Like, I don't know if those are things that you think about as part of your safety and your self-protection, but to me, that's threat avoidance. Um, and that's my skill. That's me implementing and living my life as a martial artist. So
Yeah, looking back, I I deeply regret what happened when I was in my early 20s, like with those scenarios. Like another instance was a guy because of that job. That's the reason why I don't do any more barkeeping.
sure.
Because of that job, I was followed by a guy high on PCP at home,
Mm,
and I should have. The thing is, like in that scenario, and you're the one with the operating brain. Like in many ways, it's not what like all your fault, but it's still kind of part of your fault. Like what I mean, it's not. It's your responsibility is not 0%. Is what I'm saying.
true.
And I should have realized that instead of dispatching that guy. Um, it's just unfortunate, right? If I focus my energies and training more on that threat avoidance and
Mm,
prevention, it didn't have to go that route. You know,
it didn't.
you know.
It didn't. But we all make mistakes. So if you take that lesson and learn from that's why that happened. That's why you needed to go through that, is to see that, Julius. Maybe we're having this that happened so we could have this conversation and compare
Man,
notes.
I mean, I'm talking about Guanyin type bodhisattva in the making out here. Maybe you're helping me. You're helping me.
Mm.
I have to
I
think. I'm
mean,
thinking.
that don't get me wrong. There have been scenarios where I felt like I should have known or I should have done something. But you can't blame yourself in those ways, because sometimes you get surprised. We all get surprised. We're human, right? And we don't always listen to our intuition, right? We don't. And you know, sometimes we make choices that in hindsight is like, damn, I felt something was up, or I felt like I should have taken the other route and I didn't, and then this happened. But
Have you ever had that, like going to more to the luminous and liminal experience? Have you had almost like that heightened, super heightened sense of awareness, like sixth sense abilities? Because there must have been a time where like maybe you were fatigued,
mm,
it puts you in like an altered state of consciousness, and you're in the zone, right? You're in what the Japanese called mushin or zero mind or flow, right? We call flow or
right.
ultra instinct if you're like an anime fan, that you were like sparring with someone and like you just point them and like your friends was like, Annie, what the hell happened yesterday, last night? Like you were like on fire. Like, have you ever had that kind of like super
Mm,
heightened sense of awareness, like, type of when people talk about taking ayahuasca or, these things like or meditating or
I know. No, I'd like to, Julius. Tell me when you have. We'll see. I hear about it. Apparently, that's possible. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I've had some classes at the academy where I've just or seminars or camps where I've come back and I'm just like I'm buzzing, and my former partner would say, like, I literally, like, he's like, I'm feeling it, like he's like I gotta stay awake because I'm getting all this buzz from you, right? um and I feel very elated and just like high as a kite, and I sometimes come back to my faculty, and I'm sure that's happened. I've been in that state, and without maybe I have, and I just haven't known. I guess that's the closest thing that when I've really had like a good solid training session, and it doesn't even have to be that long. Like I, right before the lockdown, I went down for the last instructor conference that Guru had. I went down on a Saturday morning, 6 a.m. trained the whole day. So I did the 4 hours of the instructor conference, did Guru's 2-hour seminar that night. And then the next morning he did a seminar, and then he did an instructor's conference. And I get back on the plane. And then the next day was the border closed. Next day.
Whoa.
But like that whole week, I was like high as a kite. I was just vibrating at a different frequency because I got like 20 hours of Guru. Well, got 20 hours of training and activating my chi in the presence of Guru.
It's odd because like when you talk about it like that, because you've had that experience, what ends up happening is, well, people that haven't felt that experience would say like, oh, you're in a cult, like, it's very cult like, or like it's woo woo, right? But it's, there really are high level practitioners that when you are in their field of presence, or within their perimeter or whatever, your capabilities are heightened. Because I remember distinctly, like, touching hands with one of the guys I admire. He's a Hollywood writer. I interviewed him before at FMA Discussion, and then he trained with Guru, and then Mahaguru Cliff, prior to, and I distinctly felt the difference. Like, and it's just like, wait, hold on a second. I've been putting hours too. How come I can't touch you no more? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you understand, right? Like,
yeah, there is. And I mean that exists in other communities as well. I suppose, various, there's a person named Amma that a lot of people revere and want to have a hug from Amma, and being in her presence is a bit like being in the presence of a bodhisattva, as it's been described. So, and I don't know if that's linked to the ayahuasca community or not, but there are people out there, right? And that we're just, people want to be around them and want to just soak up their energy and so yeah, but I think we are cultivating our energy through our movement, and through the breath that is linked to that movement, and through the rhythm and the drumming that is the context for that movement, and the collective that comes, right? There is something so unbelievably powerful about being in a room full of 20, 30, 40 people, all clicking sticks to the same rhythm at the same time, all together. Like, just, and it might be for a few split seconds, and then people are at different rhythms and they're clicking at different times, but there's this whoo moment, right? Yeah. And it's like when you watch birds doing a dance in the sky together and they transition, and there's that moment where they all come together, right? Or something, and they all fly and they create an image as a group. Or, you see it with theater and dance and stuff, right? That synchronicity and that timing, and it's all of that. And so, that surely is a benefit to all of us. And maybe some of it raises us to a higher level more permanently,
There are individuals like Gurdon. I think he is kind of like that when it comes to martial arts. Like, he has siddhis, but it's like through martial arts. If you get what I mean.
I think so.
And it's like, I think when you talk about the rhythmic thing, you're touching something very important on that, because essentially, like, a stick is like our first tool, like our first implement, as a higher a primate, and perhaps it's like, it almost talks like from something deep in remote antiquity, and like the primordial ooze or something about us that touches that, right? And then kind of like the hertz, right? And the pentatonic type beat or scale, right? Sorry. That it elicits, because it's just like, it's so strangely familiar. Am I wrong? Am I right? Like, when you're in that room, like, you're like, man, I've been here. Like, why does it feel like I've been here before? Like, you understand?
I do. And funny enough, it triggers a story that I'll share that actually is from the perspective of my former partner, who wasn't a martial artist and felt exactly what that realization, because they love jungle music in the UK, and drum and bass. And drum and bass has, and in fact, actually, he used drum and bass rhythms in our Kali class, and those rhythms got everyone going. And they are war rhythms. They are ultimately the rhythms that are the primordial sound of when people needed to go to war and fight and protect their community and protect their family. And he had that realization. Seeing us respond to those rhythms made him realize why there's so much attraction in the dance community, and why the response collectively is the kind of response physically that also happens in war through the FMA practice, if that makes sense. Right? There is, I think, yes, exactly what you said. I just have a different story about that.
I call it the scale, or the key of diatonic. You know.
Yes, absolutely. And it really is. You know, I mean, it's the heartbeat. It's the first thing that we heard. You know, like that kind of that beating of the drum of the heart, and then that's been translated through history to you know, in that war. That's mostly the way, I think. And then now it's in dance, right?
Yeah,
And that's the outlet for the youth, hopefully. That's nonviolent.
my take in that is probably it's a primordial memory, because when we're inside the womb,
Yeah.
that's the first sound we hear, is basically the synchronicity of your heartbeat and that of your mom.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the first you know, it's kind of like an ohm sound almost, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we're winding down, and this is like a really cool question that I just got right now.
Okay.
And this is addressed like the injury thing, and we were
Mm.
talking about longevity earlier. Do you incorporate any kind of longevity training and recovery in your FMA practice, such as yoga? You know, like those kind.
Yeah. I've thought a lot about it.
Okay,
Um,
so please, the floor is yours.
yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. I've thought a lot about that. I did yoga in one of those interim years when I couldn't do the FMA because I didn't have the partner, right? That was the whole limiting piece. Um, but I guess I feel like if I'm gonna spend any time, I want it to be doing my training. So I guess what I'll do is, because of my injury, to be fair, I've actually withdrawn a lot from my training, and that's been more a mental health piece for me. So I'm getting over that. I'm recovering from that, and so, and you know, having these online classes has been helpful for me to actually not necessarily have a partner where I feel I have to keep up, where I can just do my training but on the screen and still feel part of a community. That's really helped me. And so now, through the inspiration of Guru Fei, like I'm going to be more creative with what I do. So do my technique and training sitting because I can't stand or walk, or go a lot slower and be Tai Chi about my FMA techniques. So still make sure that my physical movement is FMA, and that I get those reps, but I mean, hopefully do it in a way that accommodates or it doesn't aggravate my injury. So I, rather than go do yoga, I'd rather just be really Tai Chi about my sombrata, or be really Tai Chi about, you know, my sagitas, and maybe even do my sagitas sitting, right?
Yeah,
And being okay with that.
that's wonderful. Because oddly enough, I think when Dean was interviewing Doug Marcaida, he said something very akin to what you just said.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of mirrors. I'm thinking about it, like, because it's hard for me, because I'm not thinking in those kind of frames. I'm not thinking in
Mm,
that kind of modality. But now I'm going to incorporate that in my training, because I will do the Tai Chi flow. You know, drawing that, that shape, and I'll
yeah.
think about it more in a 1-2,
Kali, yeah.
scenario. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of awesome, you know, warm ups, movements from the Salat system I've learned that that are good conditioning, you know, and I can still do some of those movements. So I guess I've now tended to favor movements that I can still do, and just practice those. But I guess the other thing I've tried to do more for my longevity is get more body work. So get massaged a little bit more regular, like a registered massage. Um, and actually, I've now found someone who can help me with one of my injuries. That was the piece that was missing, was anyone who could actually do something. So now that I can, I'm doing that, and that's helping to make me feel like I can get back to my training, when you see improvement and stuff. So, because I know Guru talks about, like, for every, like, when you're past a certain age, and I think it was 35 was his age. So I'm 5 years behind, 6 years behind. But for every hour of training, you should do an hour of recovery training. So that's a lot of hours, dude. Like, if you want to do 2 hours of training, that's another 2 hours of other stuff, like going to a sauna or doing stretching. Honestly, my thing is just doing more Epsom salts baths, especially when I'm feeling I've had a tough training session, because that really just helps, so that the next day I'm not so freaking sore and tight that you know, that's no good. So just trying to do more of that I definitely didn't do when I was younger.
I'm so glad that you're, because the thing is, this doesn't get addressed a lot in pretty much any of our episodes, and that's why I always try to like bring it up if the episode stretches a certain time, if it's a long one, because it's easy to have a very dog brothers type of mentality, a very guru animalistic mindset. But I'm speaking from my own experience. Like, I was trained by Freddie Roach's brother. Like, I train in the wild card gym, and we do it pretty hard over there. Like, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about, if you're a pro or you're like an upcoming fighter, like you're putting like 30 rounds of ring work in, like double end bag, speed bag, heavy bag, you know, uppercut bag, you know, jump rope.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's mighty fine and dandy. And I actually agree with Guru Dan. I think that's the age, because I started feeling changes around like 32. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it anymore. Like the kind of stuff we were
Yeah.
doing back then,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure. And then that's just the age piece. And then what if you had a major injury, and you know, you're just aggravating it more by not giving it that rest time. So I think just being more mindful and willing to balance the rest, right? And to value that, because as martial artists, we don't, as warriors, that's the opposite of what we want to do, right? We want to be strong, we want to be fighting, we want to be powerful. But to be all those things, to be the yang, you need the yin, and we all know that. um and some of us practice that. My teachers practice that, and I'm trying to do more of that, and I'm being forced to do more of that, because in
So
order for me to go back to my training, I have to, because I've been so limited.
So this brings me to a relevant topic, because it's cold up there where you are at. Have you implemented any kind of like Wim Hof or like cold bath training, anything like that, to, like, you know, to speed up recovery? Because I'm thinking you don't need much of that because it's cold up there.
Well, hey, funny enough, Julius, I live in a rainforest, man. I live in a rainforest. And guess what? There's a desert on the other side of the mountains in the Okanagan.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yes, there is a lot of snow in Canada, in parts that I don't live in. But no, I've actually only recently been introduced to Wim Hof, maybe like just before the pandemic. Um, it's an awesome concept. In fact, you know, washing your face with cold water or taking a cold shower is actually thought to be a way to um, reboot your nervous system that calms you down, like the opposite of the fight or flight. So there's good neurological. It's a good neurological technique. So you talked about vagus nerve, right? The vagus nerve stimulation. There's a way to stimulate that to help you reduce anxiety. Uh, Actually, yeah, and cold water is another one. I guess because it brings you into your body, And so it triggers that, I think it's the parasympathetic nervous system that calms you down, right? I don't do that. I'm aware of all these things, Julius. So all your questions are like, oh, I really should do this more, feeling guilty. But I'm starting with baby steps, and my baby steps is like I say, I like the Epsom salts bath after for the muscle relaxation, and just being more gentle with myself in my training, not feeling like I have to go at 100%, and being happy with the Tai Chi speed and focusing on the technique. Because as we talked about earlier in our conversation, if I hone that technique, then that is what's going to work for me. It's not going to be my muscle and my strength. And the only way to learn technique well is to do it slow, right? Slow is smooth, and then smooth is fast.
Yeah.
So slow is good.
Yeah.
Slow is good. So I'm trying to take this good mindset right now. I haven't been in a good mindset, Julius, before. I wouldn't have been able to have this conversation with you about this, even if it was 6 months ago.
I right back at you. I mean, this pandemic has been very hurtful for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very terrible. Like it set me back like economically about 10, 12 years. Now I have to start to square one. But that's okay. But we're doing great now. I think what it is I needed FMA discussion, and it really bettered my life.
Good.
It re
Yay.
it really did. So I'm same
Yeah.
with you. I probably wouldn't have had this conversation correct 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really great to I'm so grateful you guys took the time to reach out to me and that we could do this. And I'm honored to
But
have the opportunity to share
we're
my experience.
we're not done yet. Don't
No,
escape.
I don't want
No,
to be
no,
done.
no,
I don't
no,
want to
no,
be
no.
done. I just want to say
I
thank you.
I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, for
um
sure.
so the main thing is so we were talking about like rest and recovery. Do you take any like hot showers or anything like that? Like maybe like sauna?
I love sauna. I love doing sauna. Sauna is good, but my best thing is actually an Epsom salts bath.
Mm.
And soaking, just soaking in the Epsom salts.
So I gotta ask about that because you were in UCLA during that time because this used to be a big part of my but when I was very economically well sustained. Have you tried any like flotation devices? Like sense
Oh,
deprivation technology.
yeah, only once, Julius, and that was just before I left. And actually, the beautiful Lauren Mary Kim, she's a stunt woman that trains at the academy.
What
Bless her.
facility did you go to? What facility did you go to?
It was somewhere near her, to be honest, and it was I just remember it was I just went north on the 405, just slightly over the mountains, and then it was wherever she was living nearby. So that was my only time I got to go. And there was a float place, actually, ironically, like about 5 minutes from my house, but it has closed down. I think it actually closed maybe about a year even before COVID. So I think it just wasn't.
Because that I'm telling you, like when you come here, I know the best one,
Okay.
and since you love Epsom salts, and basically that's tied to that technology. I love going there. Just like feeling like all your senses are cut off, and you just get to relax. Like your spine has like no pressure. It's just so good. Like
Yeah.
after like
Nice.
a really hard like Kali or FMA workout. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's great. Look forward
yeah.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, and it's cheap. It's not that expensive too, because most places is like 100 an hour, or 100 for 2 hours or something.
Oh,
This
I
one
don't
is like
know.
really good. They're a pioneer. They're a
Oh,
pioneer of the technology.
cool.
Um,
So you
and
do that
then
a lot. Is that what you do then, Julius, for your recovery?
yeah, I used to like now I'm obese, but prior
Yeah.
to no, don't, we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that soon. Um,
Yes, you'll get that off when you start moving.
um, prior to the what happened in the pandemic, and it's like fit after a really hard workout, that's where I would go to. Like I would sign up for like a 2 hour session,
Oh
and
wow.
I would just lay in there. Like I
Oh,
was just laying there.
oh,
Yeah, and
yeah.
these are this facility is connected to the famous scientist, the basically the systems analyst guy. He worked with dolphins.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
why it's escaping my mind.
I don't know.
Um, I'll think
I
about it.
don't
I don't
know.
know. I'm having that
You're
moment.
having a brain fart like I did earlier.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
The
Yeah.
one unfortunate thing about that float thing was I got a wee bit in my eyes, and oh man, that was
Oh,
tough. That
that's
was
painful.
tough trying to like, because your hands are wet and you're like, how do I get this out of my eye?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a slight. There must be a technique to make sure that doesn't happen.
There is actually.
Yeah,
There is. Yeah,
yeah.
you have to make sure that your face is completely dry before you come in. So what I would do is like, those shamu, the ones that you use for your wiping your car.
Yeah.
Bring one when you go
Oh,
before you go,
right.
and like actually like, blot your face like that, because your sweat ends up like falling, and then you're like, like Epsom
Right. And
salt.
then your hand has got the super salt water.
Yeah, John C. Lilly. So
Ah,
scientist John C. Lilly, he knows those people that's kind of comes from his legacy.
okay.
Um, so you might want to look him up because he's a very interesting guy. He passed away like 2 decades ago, but he's like a really one of the pioneers of science, like John C. Lilly.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks for sharing.
and and then I was gonna ask concerning that one of the final questions that we had is like for recovery stuff, like what do you recommend for diet? Like meaning like um do you do any kind of fasting? What are the superfoods that you have? I want to hear about all this, like your methodology, because you're a scientist, so.
Yeah, well, and ironically, I'm a nutritional epidemiologist, so I actually study how diet affects your health outcomes. That's always a really good question, and I'll preface it with I'm not a dietitian, so this is not professional advice. This is just personal and knowledge of evidence. I mean, it's personal to everyone, right? So what works for everyone is going to be really distinct and individual, and that's what makes it hard to actually research, to be honest. And the science is not very strong. So for me, I do I do use, I guess, intermittent fasting on a sort of subconscious level in a way. It's what works for me. I find some days I may skip a meal or two, and that's fine. I kind of am perhaps a little bit more on the low calorie intake because I guess one area of science that has the strongest evidence in humans is around lower calorie diets leading to longer longevity. That there is very consistent research that shows um, that reducing your calorie intake, however you do that, whether it's daily or every other day or whatnot, can increase longevity. Right, aging, it helps aging. So I'm aware of that, but I try and eat clean, Julius. I try not to have processed foods. I try and limit my sugar intake to about less than 5% of whatever the product is. So if it's a packaged product, I look at, how many sugars are grams in the portion gram that is identified. And then I want to be at around the 5% mark of that.
Wait, hold on. I gotta write all this. Sorry. Um,
Yeah.
5% mark of what?
Of
What?
sugar content in any food product that I consume. So
Okay.
I don't add sugar to anything I cook or make, right? So I don't have sugar. But if I have to buy something, like from the shops or something and it's pre-packaged, you usually get those like nutritional info thingies. And so I'll always look at the package and I'll look at, okay, what is the portion size that they're telling me is the amount, right? Because that's not the amount of the product, that's the portion size of that product. And let's say I don't eat cookies, but let's say you have a bag of cookies and they're telling you there's like 7 grams of sugar, but it's 7 grams in the portion, which they determine is 2 cookies, not the whole bag, right? So when you're doing your math, you want to make sure you know what your denominator is, right? So if it's 7 grams out of 21 grams, because a portion is 21 grams, that is a third sugar. That's 7 divided by 21. Not eating those cookies, right? So I mean, it's obvious not to eat cookies, but not all products are obviously unhealthy, or not all products are obviously you'll be shocked at how much sugar there is in a lot of products that you wouldn't expect it to be, right? So that's been my kind of perhaps my main thing I've always focused on, is keeping that sugar really, really, really minimal. Because you'll get it in all forms. In most things you eat, you'll get enough carbohydrate in the form of real sugar. But heavy on the veg, right? Half my plate's usually veg and mostly protein. Very, very little carbs, but that's because I can't eat wheat, Julius. So I've had a wheat allergy since I was a kid. It's not an allergy anymore, thankfully, because my mom was smart enough to remove those food items from my diet when I was younger so that my immune system could build itself. Because if you're constantly eating things that your body's actually mildly allergic to, you develop chronic illness, right? Because that's
Right.
constant chronic inflammation.
Right. Like basically, it's like a form of Crohn's almost. It's like almost like a Crohn's disease to some people because you're fighting it off all the time.
Yeah, well, in the sense that it becomes chronic. Yeah,
Yeah.
Crohn's is a chronic illness. Yeah. So those are like my little tips and tricks. Some of it is just default that I can't eat wheat, so I never go into a bakery. I don't really buy, like I say, cookies. If I do, it has to be gluten free. And then again, that sugar, my sugar rule usually rules out those cookies regardless whether they're gluten free or not. So
I mean, nobody can argue with you. You look like you came out of high school.
thank you. So yeah, so
Like the guru dance secret is like, how does these like stay looking like that, and moving like that?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's worked a lot on his exercise side. I guess for me, diet's been always part of my lifestyle. It's had to be. So I've luckily developed habits because of those allergies that then mean it's not a restriction for me to have. I don't have to cut out baked goods, which is the hardest piece for most people when they're thinking about their diet and changing their diet, right? Is because you have the habit and it's norm for you to, whatever it is, buy bread, have a
Yeah.
sandwich.
Or even like, well, in previous generations that was a problem for the FMA community, or alcohol.
Hmm.
Sadly, I mean.
That's a good point. Actually, I'm pretty light on the alcohol, and that alcohol is high in those calories, right? So that's another piece that's interesting. Some people don't think of alcohol as part of their diet. It is when you're studying diet. It is part of it because it contributes to those total calories, right? So you always have to adjust for people's
You
alcohol.
you have such a varied background because, like, wait, do you just like accumulate degrees, like, and it's just kind of like a fetish for you, like, kind of like that's like your thing, you're addicted to it, right?
Not
So it's
really.
like,
I wouldn't call it that. But I love learning, and I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, Julius. So that's partly why I have a lot of degrees. Is some of my degrees was I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
because think about it, like, you have a philosophy background, right? And then you have a nutritionist background. You have a systems like data analyst, type of background as well. This
Yeah.
is so insane. Like, how many PhDs do you have? Like,
No,
one,
you
right?
asked me that already. Yeah.
What, you have one, and you
Fun.
have two masters,
Mm-hmm.
and then how many bachelor's degrees do you have?
I have one 4-year bachelor's. So my 4-year bachelor's was a double major, and so I did biology and philosophy in my undergrad, which was why I took that time off because I had a really intense high school. I did the baccalauréat international, so in bilingual, the international baccalaureate, and that is where in high school some of the you do an exam, and the exam is like the last 3 years of your education or 2 years. And when you do the higher level, when you do well on those exams, those are equivalent to first year university courses. So I actually got some courses transferred. So it was very heavy academics in my high school, very heavy academic in my undergrad. So hence the kind of year off. I come from a family that really values education, Julius. So
Are your parents academes in
my
academia?
dad is a professor of law. Hmm.
And so are you a professor right now?
I am. I'm a
Awesome.
professor in training.
Also, so like, how much postdoc work have you done? Because you have such a varied,
I did 2.5 years. So my postdoc when I was at UCLA the second time was 2.5 years. It was actually supposed to be about 4. I actually got a contract for 5. I got a visa for 5. But sadly, that professional relationship wasn't positive and supportive for me. So I looked for a job. I looked for the next step, and faculty positions are like diamonds or like needles in a haystack. They're very few and far between. They're rare, and I had to just kind of jump at the opportunity. Um, Ironically, I didn't actually get the job. I didn't get the job I went for, but they created a position for me to have me anyways.
Yeah, I only have my bachelor's degree, but basically, your kind of people are the people I hang out with.
Yay!
Like
Black
people I've
people's.
people I've dated. My work in Hollywood. For some reason, one reason or another, I gravitate towards that because I come from
Yeah.
a STEM background,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just a geek because like I finished my bachelor's in like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, about 2 3 years, like less than less
Good
than
for
less than
you.
less than three. Like, cause I came in with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
college thing, and one thing that I kept on going on is like I think the need of movement for a lot of that crowd. Because
Mm.
I had this conversation with Ray Bradbury's group. Are you familiar with Ray Bradbury?
No. Where is
Like
he?
he was like a famous like science fiction author.
Oh no, sorry. I don't. I
Um,
not.
we were having this conversation, and it's just unfortunate they passed away when before we implemented. Like, don't you feel that? So my question for you is like that maybe like the academia world would need like more like movement in their life. That's why I look up to the cognitive Kali guy, the
Yeah.
McCarthy dude,
Yeah.
because
Paul McCarthy.
I think it's sorely missing, honestly. You know?
It is. Well, I mean, it's missing in all office-based occupations, right? All office-based
Yeah.
occupations.
Look at me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'd say look at me because I've withered away, Julius. I've lost my muscle tone and because I haven't been kicking a heavy bag for 5 freaking years. So I'm working on that. I'm working on activation of the lower limbs. Um, my
When we meet up, I am gonna be like asking you all kinds of CLOT questions because I really enjoyed
okay.
the JKD and the street stuff that Burton had because he did that for Black Belt magazine. He had a book and he also did one. It was used to be in the Oxygen magazine. He had like an online course for it,
Okay.
right? And I
Yeah.
always thought that was like so genius of him, and like so
Mhm.
that like back and forth, like that material back and forth. I was just
Yeah.
wondering like because the thing is I know like an older former style of CLOT, but it's just
Okay.
like the key is like how do you apply that in an actual combative aspect, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I have all kinds of questions. Maybe it shouldn't be so addressed here because we are technically FMA discussion and not CLOT discussion. But
Wow.
honestly, we're transitioning to that.
Kali
So
is Sealot, and Sealot
yeah,
is Kali.
yeah. Spoiler, guys. Spoiler alert. And like
Spoiler
if you,
alert: FMA
and
in southern Philippines is Sealot.
yeah, in FMA discussion, like we're thinking of like kind of like broadening our horizon. So it's
Hmm.
like include. We've had a lot of different practitioners of martial arts. Because granted, in the FMA community, most FMAers have another martial art in their background, right?
Mhm.
And so like we want to expand more and have like a lot more CLOT guys. And so when I meet you, I'm like, madam, like coach me, like you know what I mean? 'Cause I really like that book. Like it was really incredible stuff that he had. Like how like
Yeah.
the analysis of like angling to like the quarter kapali, how to actually apply it properly. Like well this won't work because like they're just gonna squirm like their head like that. So you gotta like do it tight, like like right
Mm.
here. I like
Mhm.
Burns methodology because he's a big guy. Am I right? He's about like 6'1", six
He
two.
is, yeah, he's very tall. He's very tall. So that picture that is on my Facebook page is a picture I took when he took my class when he came. I was so honored that he brought him and his daughter took my class. And they did that after he gave a seminar. So he came up to Vancouver, he was hosted and did a seminar. And of course, I attended a seminar. And I was just so uh, just pleased that he decided to come to my Monday night CLAT class. And so I asked for a picture. And so that's on my Facebook page. So uh, I've taken his seminar, and we've trained at the academy at the same time together. But I have not actually taken any lessons specifically from Burton, and I know his books. That I would love to buy his books. I haven't bought them yet, but they do sound awesome. And I love the seminar he provided. It was awesome, and everyone has a different perspective of kind of the secret stuff, like the things that make the lever work, right? Like you were talking about coming in close and holding the position tightly with limited space. And but then that's going to work for him because he's a tall man.
Right.
And so that's awesome. And that's why it's good to learn from different people, but it's also understanding that the tips and tricks that work for that person may not actually apply to you. And I think the martial arts wisdom is knowing when that is the case. Is when, what is the knowledge that is the truth for you? And when is the knowledge the truth for your student? And it's having that knowledge and knowing when to apply it. Right? And so I guess that's, it's great to have different perspectives and instructors, I think. And because sometimes that one instructor will be like, they did it this way, and I'm doing it this way, and it works for me now. It's like, great, awesome, you found
that last several sentences that you have there, we could like fit that in like a fortune cookie type wisdom, like saying that was good. That was good. I want to end it here because what ended up happening was I'm so sorry. What ended up happening is like we did it so long it cut off our first one. Like now I have to like merge this in Adobe Premiere Pro.
So has it, because it says live, so has it just chunked it out?
Yeah, so what ended up happening is that first one is like more than like 90 minutes. It's like 100 minutes, and then we're back now at 0. So now we're like 6:18 in of the second video. So like so I have to like fuse them together, you know.
Okay.
No. It's good. It's good. Here's the thing. Like I would want to have you back. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I can't wait to meet you.
Same. Oh, I'd love to come back, Julius, for
Yeah,
sure.
I'll
There's
totally
so
geek
much
out.
to
Like we
talk
could totally
about.
talk about like philosophy and like Derrida and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, well, you can teach me some stuff with that.
No. I'm blown away because you have like 4 different backgrounds. That's
I
so
do.
insane.
I do. I love learning, like I say. And and I'm fortunate enough to be in a family that really valued education and really invested in education. And in part that's from family history of losing everything, right? Losing assets, losing land. Um, and the one thing that can't be taken away from you is your education and your knowledge.
Yeah, my dad said the same thing all the time. He's like, they can't take what you've learned away from you.
No, especially not when that's that experiential knowledge, right? When it's really inside you, and you get that from that interaction, right? From that play that you have with your FMA partners. That's what gets it into your body, and once that's in there, you can then tap that, and like we were saying with our kind of solo practice is reactivating those muscle memories, but it's getting it in there in the first place.
Before I leave, I was just gonna say recommend maybe some of the viewers here because they're also martial artists. Like I know you like the show. Watch the OA because you totally remind me of Britt Marling. It's so cool. You'd be like a character in one of the things that she writes because she writes her own movies essentially.
Very cool.
And she like stars in yeah. So the OA. Yeah.
All right.
So read up on our homies John C. Lilly. He passed away when I was in high school, I believe. But,
okay, I will.
Take care.
Thank you, Julius.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. Om Mani Padme because you have the Guanyin type Bodhisattva behind you.
And in the language here, I'll say Haichka Sam. I'm on Squamish territory, Musqueam territory, and Tsleil-Waututh territory. So Haichka.
I don't know the Tongva dialect for that since I'm in Southern California, but I have to figure that out. Thank you.